So this is the concept that you're bringing out of caloric pacing then, and trying to balance and let's say in our system we've got 200 calories. And let's say we've got blood coming in and we have, let's say, a sugar-laden meal. And then so it dilates that and we dump a bunch, 600, let's say even 1,000 calories in it. Now we have 1,200 calories into the system. Now, explain to us, if we continue on eating and dumping more calories in, what's the effect of that?
It's a very interesting phenomenon. It occurs at the level of the muscle fiber. So if we're talking about carbohydrates,
okay,
when the sugars enter the bloodstream faster than muscle can handle, at first, muscle will absorb quite a bit of sugar. This will last 5, maybe 10 minutes. What's interesting, and this is where it gets a little bit technical, is that as sugar levels are rising rapidly within the muscle fiber, those sugar molecules, 3% of them, are actually converted into a form of glucosamine, an acetylated glucosamine, which competes with phosphate at the phosphorylation site of insulin receptor substrate 1, IRS1, which is the first downstream protein in the signaling cascade from insulin to the sugar transporters, glucose transporter 4, GLUT4. So if you imagine, and I love to give this analogy to my students, if you imagine the classroom as the muscle fiber,
okay,
and the hallway outside as the bloodstream, and insulin makes the fire alarm go off, and then the first student that hears it touches the next student on the shoulder, which is the first insulin receptor substrate 1, signaling the next protein, and there's a chain of students touching each other's shoulder, and then the student at the other end of the room ultimately gets their shoulder touched, and that student fuses into the wall of the room and starts gobbling up sugars from the bloodstream and spitting them into the muscle fiber. That is the actual process inside muscle. Insulin binds, a cascade of signals, and the sugar transporter fuses into the surface of the muscle fiber. So here's what's happening when sugar comes in too fast. The sugars that come in, 3% are converted into this acetylated form of glucosamine, and it binds to one of those students' shoulders.
Okay.
So that when the neighboring student touches the shoulder, he or she does not feel it. And the signaling is completely shut down. So that for the next several hours, that muscle fiber is no longer sensitive to insulin. Insulin will bind, but it can't send a signal through those students. So the student at the end of the line never fuses to the wall and never gobbles up the fuel and sends it into the muscle fiber. And there's a study that actually showed that when you eat a high glycemic index breakfast, meaning carbohydrates that digest quickly for breakfast, that this effect is powerful enough that you're still insulin resistant at lunchtime at your next meal.
Wow.
So no matter how healthy your next meal is, you still have more calories going to body fat, because by default, when muscle absorbs fewer calories, more goes to body fat. Remember, the reason we're talking about muscle versus fat in this whole battle of where calories are going is because all the other tissues in your body, they do respond to insulin, but primarily the rate at which they absorb calories is determined by their activity level, not by whether you just ate or not.